United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first thing I would like to do is actually call Brian LaMonica up, because I have two presentations to make to you for your 25 years of service to the village. One is from the village, and one is from your, so I'm going to hand both of these to you for your 25 years of service to the village, Brian. Thank you very much. It's always good to start on a good note. All right. The next is mayoral appointments, and I will turn it over to the village administrator, please.
Yes, resolved, Mayor Manger appoints and requests a motion from the Board of Trustees to approve Guadalupe Vargas to be appointed to the position of student intern in the tax receiver's office at an hourly rate of $27. That would be effective November 15, 2024, for a time period of December 30, 2024, January 17, 2025.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Resolved that the mayor appoints and the Board of Trustees approve Shelley Wheeler to the position of part-time office assistant in the Department of Public Works at an hourly rate of $25 an hour, effective November 1, 2024. It's rescinded.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and with that, we will now turn it over to Diamond for the presentation on the cell tower proposal. First, we're going to have
First, we'll start
Christian
with the Planning
Pico, sorry,
Commission to
the
introduce
Planning Commission Chair.
topic. Thank you.
Excuse me.
First, I'd like to thank Mayor Manger for entrusting your Planning Commission to work on finding solution to this critical issue. I recall my conversation with Bill when he was elected mayor, asking for us to work on this, and I think neither of us knew how relevant this was going to be when we had this conversation in July of 23. The commission sat down with our first responders and had multiple meetings with all the cell carriers. We formed a task force with the, thank you. We formed a task force with the first responders, and we got deep into the weeds. And what became clear to us is we had a bigger issue than improving cell reception for residents. So we set out to, we can go back to the previous slide, whoever's, there we go, thank you. Set out a vision, which is to improve communication for first responders, and second, the cell service for village residents. On the Planning Commission, working with us has been Michel Bourgard. From the fire, Chief Ricky Fowler, SVPD, both the chief, Susan Heritow, and Brian LaMonica, you just saw. Kyle McGinnis for ambulance, myself, and Trustee Zanatti. I'm sorry, Trustee Zanatti, you're at the bottom. It doesn't mean you're not the first guy I call when we got a problem, but I can't make up your letter Z.
I've lived my life being at the bottom. Don't worry.
So you were going to hear from each one of them, as you did a year ago in this room, and how passionate they are on the topic and finding a solution to be implemented very soon. And before I explain the issues, I wanted to share with you what happened nearby a few months ago as an illustration. The family was having lunch during the summer on Hampton Road. Someone started to choke at the table, and a woman frantically was trying to call 911 with her cell phone, but she couldn't get reception. So fortunately, she ran to Sip and Soda next door to find the last remaining payphone, and Mark Parrish was able to make the call. So clearly, marking his payphone save a person's life. And this anecdote for me really hit home as I lost a close friend in July when he choked and the first responders didn't arrive on time. And this was a tragedy for this friend, for his family, and his friends. It didn't happen in Southampton, but it highlights how important it is for our first responders to have good communication and act fast to save lives. Trustee Simeone and I spoke on Thursday night, and he was telling me he has a T-Mobile and very spotty reception when he walks on Crider Beach, often with his dog. And I asked Eduardo, what happens if you see someone drown? And his answer was, well, I'm really looking forward to hear this presentation on Thursday night. So here we are. Here are the three main issues. Residents, first, may be unable to reach 911 with their cell phone, especially with summer congestion. Two, every first responder computer in their vehicle, PD, fire, ambulance, are connected via Verizon Wireless. They lose connection regularly, and the 911 call center doesn't know where the vehicles are to respond to an emergency. Or worse, during an emergency, the system disconnects and responders don't know where to go. Rick Fowler shared with us an example of his red NMX screen down in his truck this week. And this is November, not during the summer. And we'll show you, well, here's the screen, yeah. And we'll show you the connection was lost. And it was a challenge to get to where he needed to go. Finally, the fire department uses Motorola equipment to reach its volunteers and communicate. So they often, that reach is weak in the western part of the village and beyond. We can flip to the agenda page. What we'd like to do very briefly on the public safety issues I just outlined, communication, fire, police, and EMS, is maybe, Brian, if you could come in just for a minute, maybe focus on some of what we talked about. I think in November last year, we already had some comments. You come here and sort of share with us some of your experiences as sitting on the 911. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. You're looking at me. Or Chief Ertow wants to do it? Okay, the Chief will do it. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. So just to touch and piggyback off of Christian, Verizon is the wireless system that we use and we rely on all year round. We see an increase in demand for cell service due to the increase in population. This is when we have what we call drop-off or connectivity issues. Our Verizon wireless system encompasses our mobile data computers in the car, our body-worn cameras, our dash cams, and our patrol phones that we use. If the MDT loses reception and drops off, mostly when you go south of Hill Street, the beach, every time you get near water, we have drop-off. That, for me, is an officer safety issue and a public safety issue as well. Our MDTs, when they're on, every officer is logged in, and our dispatch center knows where the police are throughout the day because the MDTs have this GPS software in it. So if there's an emergency, the dispatchers will look on the screen to see which car is closer. That's why our response times are so, one of the reasons why they're so good, and that goes for fire and EMS as well. If those MDTs aren't logged in because it's drop-off, we could delay response times. Our officers can get injured if they're involved in something and we can't reach them. And we can't get to the call as efficiently and quickly as possible. For any reason, if our 800 radios go down, our department-issued cell phones and our patrol phones have a push-to-talk for Verizon. So we'll be able to communicate with one another. But again, if there's a high demand for cell service, we're not going to be able to talk to each other, which means we're not going to be able to dispatch calls, respond to emergencies, etc. These drop-offs can negatively affect public safety. We pride ourselves, all of the EMS agencies, in our response time. When demand for cell service increases, the PD has issues with the 911 calls dropping. This can have negative consequences. I'm just going to give you two examples, and this is just two of many. We had a resident walking with her husband in June, one June, maybe a year or two ago, and he dropped. He was not breathing, he was unresponsive. She called 911. Our officers were there within 30 seconds doing CPR. Behind them, paramedic. Behind the paramedic was an ambulance. He's in the hospital, and he's alive today. What if that call dropped? Another example, a child had a foodborne allergy, got a hold of a bag of peanuts. Mother called 911. Son's throat was closing. He had an anaphylactic shock. Our dispatchers are trained to give emergency dispatch over the phone. Our dispatcher started to do that. If that call dropped, that child may not have done so well. Child's alive today. Those are just two examples. Our Verizon, the Verizon package that we have is a public safety mobile broadband, and that means we get priority. So if it's packed out here and the cell tower is jam-packed, we get priority over probably everybody else. We're still getting calls that are dropped, and that's just unacceptable. It's the same concept as our traffic problem. Too much volume, not enough road. High demand for cell service at peak times results in connectivity issues and potential public safety risk. So I feel, and the police department feels, that a cell tower would benefit the community as a whole while further enhancing public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Is someone from EMS or fire wants to come over? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Chief Kyle McGinnis of the Village Ambulance, as most of you know. I just want to address the board and the public about this plan that they have in place. So first, I want to address the radio communication issue. Our pagers are essential tools for alerting our members for ambulance calls. Sometimes during the summertime, often those pagers don't activate, especially because our repeater, which gets the ambulance call when they dispatch it, goes to the repeater's located in Village Hall, which is a low point. It's our only repeater. So many times our pagers either don't come in clearly or don't activate anywhere south of Hill Street, as well as outside the village limits where a good portion of our members often live. Additionally, with the cell service, like Christian said, we have the Red Alert system as well, but we actually use it if you don't have your pager. It's a mobile app. So a lot of times if cell service is taxed in the summertime, those mobile activations don't come through, and it could lead to us not, certain members who are essential, like drivers, paramedics, EMTs, not getting the call and not getting notified. One other thing that I like to bring up and point out is the ambulance and EMTs and paramedics work under protocols, but there's often times that we have to get in contact with medical control. Medical control is a group of doctors with Stony Brook who can actually approve us to provide more advanced care, more medical, additional medications in order to save lives. So I am very, very for this cell tower going up. Not only is it going to help benefit the visitors, the taxpayer, it's going to greatly increase our ability to communicate with each other and as well as medical control. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Well, thank you. So if we can go to the next slide, I don't think anybody from fire is here. Ricky, I don't see Ricky here. Okay. We go to the next slide, then the one after that. I'll just outline what we've been working on. We were here November a year ago, outlining what the plan was, and three-step plan where two are done, and we're now with the third one. So the first one was to update a village code as far as a personal wireless service facility, which we did, obviously with the help of a village attorney. We worked on this, did a public hearing, and got that done. We then went to a process with an RFP to find a tower operator. This was an extensive process. We had an RFP committee made of a number of people, Village Hall and community, and selected as a result of this exhaustive review bids that were received, retained Diamond Communications. So we're now in the third phase, which is the determination and implementation, doing public presentation, which we're doing now, but this is not the first one. This is one of many we've had. We were here a year ago to discuss this. We have had at every planning commission meeting, month after month, updates in terms of where we were in this three-step process. So the public has been very well informed in terms of every step that we've taken. So I'd like to hand it over to Tony from the Diamond Communication Group to talk to us about their deficiency studies, what they've done, and their conclusions. Thank you.
Tom go first, and then I'll follow.
Okay.
So I'm not Tony. I'm Tom. I'm Tom Wineski from Diamond, and thank you for having us tonight. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees, for having us. The Diamond team, which is here tonight, we have 4 people here. We're actually a large organization. We have 140 members. We're going to show you a little bit about Diamond, and I'm going to walk you through both the process of how we complied with the RFP by looking at all the available properties, and Tony's going to walk through that. But then we're going to talk about our conclusions and what the next steps are. But just real quickly, I handle site acquisition and zoning for Diamond. Tony Sabatino, who's going to talk next, is our CTO. He handles RF coverage, maps. He's the technology person who can really explain anything you want to know about wireless systems. Pete Woodbury is the president of our partnership area. He's worked through the RFP process. He's worked extensively with the mayor and the trustees here. And then Joe Cullen, our analyst in the back. He's young and learning and is seeing part of the process as well of what we're doing. So if we can go quickly to our Diamond contact. I'm not sure if anybody's had the opportunity to look up Diamond online, see who we are and what we do. I'll briefly run through it. We've been in business for quite a long time. We are the 5th largest tower company nationwide and the 2nd largest private tower company. The larger companies in front of us are American Tower, Crown. But we are one of the largest private tower companies out there. We build in all 50 states. We handle everything from regular tower builds, such as what we're talking about here, to rooftops. We handle in-building systems. We handle different systems within hotels, and we work with every wireless carrier nationwide. So in this particular area, there are 4 carriers that we're particularly working with, but we have master lease agreements with all of them nationwide, and we've continued to build through them throughout the years. So Diamond itself, we have done quite a bit of work working with different jurisdictions where we've won our RFPs, or we've simply approached them to build and develop towers on their properties. Everything from Palm Coast in Florida, where we wrote their ordinance and then we helped implement their towers there as well. Daytona Beach, also in Florida, we built one tower. We're in the process of building another tower. Each one of those is to improve their emergency systems, but also allow private companies such as Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T to co-locate on those towers to be able to provide coverage as well as the public safety aspect of what we're doing. We've done quite a bit in the Northeast as well, but those are different types of projects. Just mentioning the Florida ones because they're much more recent of what we've done. So if we can go to the next slide. This is an executive summary, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly touch on this, then I'm going to turn it over to Tony, and he's going to go through our compliance with the RFP, then we'll come back to me, and I'm just going to walk you through the one site that we feel is the best option for the village to move forward. And we're going to show you what our proposal is for that property, how it looks on the ground with the lease exhibit, how it looks with photo simulations, and then we can go from there about a timeline if that site is approved by the members of the village trustees. So in June of 2024, we won the RFP process here, and the RFP process was not simply to put up a tower for wireless carriers. It was focused on the public safety aspect of what we're doing. So part of that process was simply not to put up a tower on a PIC location, but it was to first look at the village, look at all the properties within the village, first determine where there are holes in coverage. Not just for private companies such as Verizon, AT&T, but also for the public safety networks, the Motorola network, the networks that each of the services use in that area. We did that first, then we took a look at over 40 village properties. The village owns properties, some of them are postage stamps, some of them are parks, some of them are quite large pieces of property that are scattered throughout the village. And we looked at over 40 of them to determine if there was a tower placed in that location. Would it first serve a public safety need? Second, would it serve a carrier need? And how would be the best way to move forward on those pieces of property? We're going to run through that. We're not going to go through all 42, but we will show you a summary of what we did to look at those. And then once we looked at all those, we came down to a conclusion of a site that we feel will work best, that will give both the public safety coverage that is needed, but also private carrier coverage that is needed within the village, and also not interfere with other aspects of the village, from how it looks, where it's placed, how it's placed close to historic properties. If that site is approved by the village, Diamond would then construct and own that tower as part of the RFP process. We'll hit the terms at the end, just so you know exactly what the village is getting out of this, besides having improved coverage. And we can now move on to the next slide, and you'll get to hear from Tony about our process of looking through each of the properties. But hopefully we won't spend too much time on that, but we're going to go through all that. We're going to show you where the deficiencies in coverage are. We're going to show you why the site that we picked, which is a Windmill Lane Fire Station, we feel is the best location that will provide the coverage not only for public safety, but for private carriers as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Tony Sabatino, our CTO, to go through that very briefly.
He's coming back.
I'm coming back.
Again, thanks for the opportunity. And, this process has not just been sitting behind a desk and analyzing it. It's driving around the city with some of the task force. Appreciate all the input that we've gotten from the task force about the intricacies on the network. But we were very clearly, when we met here this summer several times, is the focus truly was on public safety first. So we had to incorporate and understand what Ricky's done a great job in telling us what, integrating us with Motorola on what's out there today and how the Motorola design is really going to serve all three of your services industries within the city. That was the first anchor capability. So as you look at that, we worked that, and I'll show you a little snapshot of what it looks like today and what their evolution plan is, because it's not just what we're doing, but there's other pieces of it in the outer edges of the village. The second thing I'm going to walk through is a deficiency study. What does that mean is, the great thing is, and I was on the standard bodies for what you've heard of 4G and 5G, is we've come up and created, sorry, I like to talk to both sides, I'll keep them, but 4G, 5G is when I was in those standard bodies and those working groups, we did something that was pretty unique. Before 4G came about, our handsets really weren't intelligent enough to tell us how well the networks performed. Well, today, utilizing a tool called crowdsourced data, the applications and everything that you have on your handset, on your device, reports information back through the app to different types of systems. There's over 400 million data points collected by individual users in the United States every day. We use that data to tell you how well the public is impacted. So we've got the Motorola study and all the testimony you've heard from the public safety team telling us, how they're having issues, as well as the 911 people, the people that have these devices that may have to make a call. And we've analyzed that, and I'll walk through a quick view of that. And then we've approached this with saying, okay, well, towers are good, but we really understand the aesthetics. Tom spends, he's in a meeting every week or two, 2 or 3 a week, discussing with communities what we have to do to assess a vertical asset to improve wireless coverage and still take the best assessment of what we can do with the surrounding community. So we've interacted with that. Okay, next slide. I'm not going to go through every one, but this is part of the 40 some odd properties we looked at. What we did is we gathered a list of viable properties owned by the village of which we could possibly put an asset. And so we look, and what this means is you can look at it. I did not, from an engineering perspective, we did an RF propagation, which means we did a design, assuming a cell site at a certain height, how well that site would perform on the different values. From a public safety perspective, what it would look like. All I did was run the base frequency. But we also looked at how would Verizon look, how would AT&T look, how would T-Mobile look, and does this site make a lot of sense? Not going to go through these, but you'll see, and this is in the deck, and that's made available for you all. Surrounded by commercial, partially visible. We look at not a really good site. So we had little comments in there. We presented that full assessment to the task force. Said, look, this is what we found. We took all these properties, and one thing we looked at police headquarters, which was a one viable thing that's been tried a couple times and looked at to the team. People said no. We really came down here and said, hey, look, the windmill location is probably the best, which we'll get to. That's the punchline. Next slide, Joe. This just is the other properties. We looked at Cooper's Beach. Could you put up a taller site at Cooper's Beach and maybe do something better? I don't think you'd ever get that approved from a visual impact area. But the same point we looked at, it's just not going to solve some of the things anyway. So from an RF propagation, it doesn't solve what this team needs and really what the community needs for better wireless coverage. Okay, next slide. So I want to point out that the public safety design has been done by Motorola, right? So Motorola already knows what that's like. That's a contract that's being worked. One of their consultants has tried that, so they know exactly what the system is. I'm going to show you a snapshot of what it looks like today. And I'm not saying in these areas that you have with the Bayside, there's only one site really communicating for the most part into the village area. But I will say, what I will show you is what we call reliable coverage. Reliable means you got a high probability of 96, 97% of that being that's a high quality. That's pretty much what we design networks to. And then I'll walk through how we looked at it with the carriers. And then the last thing is we'll tell you the result of what we found out as we analyzed all 40 of those properties and looked at them all and figured out this is the best solution. Okay? Next slide, Joe. Okay, so here, there's multiple pieces here, but on the left-hand side, you see this is what we call ITT Wireless Way. This is the actual site working today that serves your services groups. And then if you look at that, that's the general coverage that we know from Motorola's system. That's pretty reliable coverage. It does creep into the city. I'm not saying you don't have coverage in those areas, but from a reliability perspective, rain, snow, all that type of stuff, which impacts signals, that we know is reliable coverage. On the right, we went in and looked at the windmill space. If you have that along with the one on top, which is the existing site, that's what you're going to do for the village, with that site that we're proposing. The next slide. This is part of the other plan that's in there. And the Southampton Stony Brook site, there's already a tower there, right, Ricky? And so they're looking at putting equipment there as well. If you look at that on the far right, that's what the total highly reliable public safety network is going to look like with the incorporation of this new asset. Should it be approved in the next? Okay, so next slide. Talked about public safety. Now we got to see how we handle the public, right, with our handsets. And so what this represents, this is the current cellular coverage of AT&T. The green dots represent where their cell sites are today. I can tell you where they're at and how well they do. What you have to look at is when you get to orange and red areas, they signify what we call unreliable. Not much different than what you're seeing on the public safety side, okay? The next slide will be Verizon at T-Mobile. T-Mobile is the worst in the community. I think those of you who know people have T-Mobile probably told you that. They have the worst service coverage. It's near no coverage in some of these areas. So you have Verizon, which actually has the best coverage. Cooper's Beach really does the beach itself, but then they have better coverage in the core area of the village as well. The next slide represents, this is what a new site would do. Now the green just shows a massive level of highly reliable coverage. That site will cover the village. The village will have highly reliable coverage as Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile become tenants on those assets. Okay?
What about the yellow? Sorry.
Very good question. All of those colors, even to the blue, that's considered reliable coverage. Very, very reliable. Good question. But the green is just like, really good. Okay? Next. Okay, back to Tom. So that's what we've done. A lot of work. These propagations on the individual site assessments, these are hours of a tool running. So back to you, Tom.
And one thing to briefly touch on with that coverage is we did analyze the putting a new tower up at the police station as well. It did provide less coverage than the Windmill Lane Fire Station as we're looking at now. So if we could use the Windmill Lane Fire Station, we looked at how could we design it that it would fit on the station, not interfere with the trucks, not interfere with the building. How can we best shield it from the public? And so what we did was we chose a location at the rear of the station, off the edge of the parking lot. Right now there's a barbecue pit there, there's a little bit of a storage building there. We would take those down, we'd place the pole in a 25 by 80 foot compound. 25 by 80 will allow us to accommodate all the carriers, potentially 4 carriers here, as well as the public safety equipment within that space. The pole would be in the far corner on the southern side of the property, mainly because behind it there are more existing trees. There's existing trees, there's existing landscape that is on the buffer between us and the movie theater, which is the property right behind it. It's a pretty substantial area, but it's hard to see with the black line, but we're adding more landscaping into the back there to screen the back of the equipment, shield the bottom of the pole, and have the pole and the equipment is going to be placed behind an 8-foot chain link fence with slats that will be hard to see visually from the street. If you look through the street. Obviously, you can't look through the building, so you're seeing the gate and the fence, and the pole itself will be behind the building itself. So with that, if we can go to the next page briefly, this is how the pole is going to look. Motorola's antennas are going to be on the top. They need to be for public safety. They have the top height, and that's the height that they need to provide that coverage that you saw on the earlier map. From there, then that does allow us to put additional carriers below. We can add a fourth if we need to as well on that pole. We're just showing this for clarity. And then you can see the additional landscaping that's going to be placed on the rear, and then the chain link fence as well for there. We did pick this location because it's in the commercial area. Not a lot, there's really no homes around it other than some small buildings here and there. It's mostly commercial. We have the movie theater behind it. We have other commercial properties around it. But we wanted to see how is this pole going to look from the rest of the village. So what we did was we did a photo simulation. This is done by our expert on this. He's testified as an expert witness in preparing these photo simulations, and they're an accurate representation of what the pole would look like when it is being put up. So if we go on to the next one. First, we were like, we wanted to make sure, can we see this site from Main Street? And so you actually can see it at the very rear of this location. So this is Main Street, Club Monaco on the left, the hardware stores on the right. This is going back to the parking lot behind the hall here. And at the very far end of it, you can see the little bit of the tower there. On the bottom right corner is the view without it. So you do have a number of public utility poles up already. There are other vertical elements that are in the area. This is somewhat shielded. So that's from Main Street. If we go to the second location, this is from Agawam Park. Now this is a much more open area. Agawam Park, obviously everyone knows, is a big grass area. And it has a view directly to the tower. The tower itself is to the left, and the flagpole and stanchions are in the middle of your picture. That is that's an accurate representation of the height. This is from the middle of the field, approximately where the summer concerts are held, where people perform that. Most of those concerts are looking at a different direction, but certainly if you're walking back towards the Main Street of the village and other areas, you would then see the tower in the rear. Let's go to the next one. This is from the Rite Aid location, basically through the parking lot. Again, large open area. So the main thing to consider is when you're walking down Main Street and you're walking down other streets, you have buildings next to you, you have trees next to you. If you're trying to see something higher up, it's hard to get the angle on it. These are open areas. This is basically the worst it's going to look. It's from these open areas. This is through the edge of the parking lot. You can see the pole in the background. Go to the next one, please. This is from Culver Street. We're trying to get more of a residential neighborhood. What would it look like from a residential area? This is one of the closest areas of residence. So we took a picture from there. And again, you can see the tower just off the edge of it. Yeah, obviously you have other wooden utility poles that are currently up, but the tower is slightly visible in a rear location there. And our final location here, this is from Hill Street. This is looking, that's the movie theater on your left. You have the commercial buildings on your right. This is looking right towards the pole itself, down the driveway. This is basically as close as you can get without being directly in front of the firehouse. So this is giving you the view of the tower directly from that. So those are the pictures that we did. Just so everyone understands the economics involved as well, through the RFP process, our winning bid was the $501,000 as well as rent. Rent in the form of a revenue share of what's collected or a base of $30,000. All the village equipment is obviously free, including the space and everything else that gets placed on there. There's no charge for that. Diamond is responsible for all construction and purchasing of the tower and all other costs associated with the zoning and permitting of that site or any other costs associated with that. And our final slide is if this site was approved to go forward, what we would do is we would start marketing. We've already begun talking to carriers. We have an understanding that they have an interest in it, but without an approved location, we can't officially get anyone to sign on board to it until it is approved. If the site is approved, then we will be able to do that and sign lease agreements with a carrier over the next 3 months. During that same point in time, we would finish our surveys, we would do our regulatory approvals. I do a lot of these. I like to say that we're more regulated than Walmart to put up a tower. We have historic properties that we have to look at, fish and wildlife that we have to look at, native tribes we have to talk to. There is a long sequence of events that has to happen on both the regulatory side as well as the zoning side. This is not the final opportunity for members of the village to have an opportunity to see and comment on the tower and to make their concerns known about it. We will be going through the zoning process just like any other applicant, and we will have to comply with that. We're allocating 8 months for that. That includes the preparation of those plans. Hopefully it's not 8 months of hearings, but you never know. And then from there, we would then look to be building sometime in the fall after the busy season here as well. And if the site is approved and we're successful in gaining zoning approval for the site, as well as regulatory approval for the site. So that concludes everything that I have to talk about, but I'm happy to answer any questions regarding Diamond, what we intend to do, or we can bring Tony back up to talk about coverage as well.
Thank you very much. Do any of the trustees have any comments they would like to make at this time or questions?
Motorola will not be paying rent, I see,
That's correct.
and that is standard, I guess, across the board.
Yes, we do build towers for Motorola separately, but those are where, in other jurisdictions, we've done quite a few in South Carolina. That's a separate build-to-suit agreement with them directly for their own use.
Yeah, I think when the key,
Please come to the podium.
the key on that is that was part of the thing in the RFP, is that we give the village a center line and the top center line for your public safety mobile equipment.
I could just, like devil's advocate, put you in a difficult position, but, what would, our alternative, of course, to do nothing, to me, that's unacceptable, we can't have gaps in our emergency coverage, but what other alternatives are there, and why is a tower better than those alternatives? In other words, when we first started this discussion, I think Planning Commission made a presentation which included some discussion of a distributed system. And there was some issue of, what are these things gonna look like all over the village? So if you could just talk about why is the tower, the single tower, the best way to go?
Sure, and it's going to be a combination of myself and Tony. Tony can explain the mechanics of that a little better, but after doing quite a few of these, I can speak to that a little bit. That is mainly that having the ability to place your equipment on one tower and provide the coverage is much simpler than having a number of different cells that are going to have to be placed in the right-of-way. There's not a lot of street lights or poles around here, other than the wooden poles that you've seen in some of the photo simulations. You're going to have pole attachments for each one of those, or install separate structures within the right-of-way to actually still get that coverage. And each one of those locations still has to be connected by fiber and power to run. And they also don't cover that far. Again, I'll defer on the coverage to Tony, but you're going to need quite a few of them.
Yeah, so we call that a distributive network. There's two outdoor distributive antenna systems as well as a carrier small cell. The challenge is you're dealing with several square miles of a cell site coverage, and the capacity and capability what can be put on that vertical asset is you can get 4G, 5G. The challenge you're going to have with a small 30-foot pole, if you can get a 30-foot pole there, is each one of those assets, the carriers have a tremendous amount of equipment for each one of those center lines, getting it all packed in. So what will happen is every light pole that you do have available, sometimes you get about 1,000 foot of radius of coverage within a single 30-foot center line. But then even that's not going to fit all AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile's gear. So it's this whole conglomerate. We have networks like that across the country that we own and operate. Mostly national parks are very specialized area at NFL stadiums, but they are very expensive too. I mean, to put in to kind of get that equivalent coverage, you're going to need a substantial amount of those low systems. We'll have to put fiber in for the streets, power. So it's a pretty complex network to do. Does that help?
Yeah. And for those people concerned about the health issue of electromagnetic radiation, can you speak to that a bit?
Sure. So actually in early September, the World Health Organization took a look at 63 different studies ranging from the early 90s through today, did a comprehensive review and found there were no health and safety effects from cell phone towers at all. So that's been the standard of the American Cancer Society, that's the standard of the FCC. Each of the carriers has to be in compliance with the FCC licensing to do that.
Thank you.
Rick, Chief Fowler,
Did you want to say anything on behalf of the fire department? Sure, just if, we looked at your screen from your vehicle the other day where you lost service on your computer on your.
Yes, yeah, that was right on Gin Lane, going from South Main Street. Sorry for the delay, I was at a fire call, so apologize.
That's acceptable.
So, just with my colleagues here from the other emergency services, we just want to reiterate that we are having deficiencies in our emergency communications. We do rely primarily on our VHF radio frequencies. Right now, our only repeater is hosted in the town of Southampton in North Sea on Wireless Way. We do have areas in the village here that we just simply cannot get out on our radios, and they're called dead spots. We've done a lot of testing and drive testing and maps which Tony and the team have, been provided, and that's how they got their data. But not only to the VHF radios, we also rely heavily on cellular data as well. In our vehicles, we have our MDTs, which is our computers. That was a screenshot that you guys saw. That provides us with mapping, routing, hydrant locations, gate codes, any pertinent information. And when we lose the cell signal on those, we can't use them. There's nothing there. So we do rely heavily on that. We also have our cell phones, which we can also pull up the mapping. So again, we're constantly running into issues where we're not able to connect, we're not able to get the information, the data. It shows our activation points, where the alarm is, any, building plans, certain, sensitive buildings have building plans, so we know exactly where to enter from, where, say the hospital, we have the hospital plans on there, we know where the standpipe hookups are, we know where the FDC is, so, all this information is very pertinent to us. So we just want to reiterate that we are having these issues, and we, are fully behind this project, and we, really hope it goes to fruition, just to simply cover our needs, but also the community as well. So that's it.
Thank you, Chief.
Tony, may I ask you, the town of Southampton awarded, through an RFP process, 2 towers in the town, not in the village. One would be by the inlet, the Shinnecock Inlet.
Yep.
And one would be by the transfer station north of the village. Could you describe how that would relate to what you're proposing here, and how that would enhance the western part of the village that is unaffected by the Windmill Lane Tower?
I sure can. We looked at both sites. The most western southwest part of the village area is a site it's known as Oakland Docks. And that site will be very complementary to the windmill. So we did propagate that site along with the transfer station site. And if you kind of notice the surrounding areas of the map, can you put it back up, Joe? Just show me AT&T, I don't care, AT&T, any one of them.
Okay.
If you look at it, it's very complementary to the site. So the Oakland Docks will not get, what it does, if you kind of look at that very, very, here you go. If you look at that, Oakland Docks is actually, thank you, Joe, right there. It has great complementary assistance to the site we're looking at, the village. So that's really going to help the Bay Area as well as going up. And then the transfer station, Joe, can you point it out? It's really going to assist in that northern portion of it. So you've got 3 sites that are in the system. One concentrating absolutely on the village, but the two, and then the third will interact very well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I just had a question on the economics again. It looks like, again, the village is going to be paid $500,000, and then we get rent from the carriers. Obviously, the rent will vary if we have 1, 2, or 3, or possibly 4 carriers.
That's correct.
What is it approximately per carrier?
I'll let you, I don't know, Pete, if you want to grab it or.
Yeah, we can see here. It's actually the greater of the 30,000 or the 50%. So it is you will have a base amount of $30,000 a year minimum that you'll be getting, plus on top of that any additional revenue coming from each of the carriers. So in this situation, we're still discussing rent with them, but it could be anywhere from, on the low end, $2,500, on the high end, probably around $5,000 per carrier.
Well, you know which one I like.
You know which one we like as well.
So how are those discussions going with carriers in terms of their willingness to sign up to Windmill Lane?
Our understanding is that, my understanding is they are going well. They want to see a commitment on the location. And that's the main issue that they have, is they can't propagate and budget until they know the timing of first the location is approved, which as of today it is not, and then to make sure that we get filed into zoning on a timely manner.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, while this is not a public hearing, I just wanted to see if any members of the public wanted to comment at all on this proposal at this time. Would you like to? No? Okay. Former Mayor Epley, please come forward.
Safety, safety, safety. This is a fantastic plan. I hope you support it. And we've looked at this multiple times over the last 20 years, Romanowski, myself, Michael Irving. This is the best plan. So I hope you guys move forward on this, and thank you to the committee for working on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Epley. Anyone else want to have any comments? All right, well,
I would just like to say that, having been appointed as a trustee a year and a half ago, this is the first thing you asked me to work on. And this is a really significant step in this effort. I have to thank not only Diamond Communications and the Planning Commission, but the first responders for the great teamwork that led us to this point tonight, and I'm very proud of all of us. Thank you.
all right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys coming out here to do this live, even bringing Joe along. So, but anyway, we will obviously take this under serious consideration, and I think this will be raised at the next meeting right before Thanksgiving. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think so, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we're gonna go to the public hearings. Again, if anyone can leave if they wanna leave, they don't have to stay for the whole meeting, but, public hearings, I will, ask to, open local law 31 of 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, this is a local law amending chapter 11638B, site plan review, objectives of site plan procedure and review, 11614I, design requirements for non-residential parking and truck loading areas, and 11614K, village business district of the village code to require minimum green space areas and screening in commercial parking areas, lots, and to require cross access between such parking area lots and adjacent properties through easements in accordance with the recommendations of the Southampton Village Comprehensive Plan Update of 2022. We have a motion and a second to open. Does the attorney have anything she would like to add at this time?
No, I just wanna say that I think, did we discuss this before? Okay, we made one change.
We did. Maybe you could talk about the one change that was made.
Yeah, so we did make one change in that, I think it was on, maybe as a result of the public hearing, that the reviewing board, meaning the planning board, would have the right to waive the cross-access requirement if they made a finding on the record that the cross-access is either not possible or not practical. So that was the one change, because this does require, I mean, traditionally we've required cross-access, the planning boards have, but this was codifying it, and then we also put in that they could have the power to waive it, so the person
Okay.
wouldn't have to go for a variance to get a waiver of that if the planning board agreed it was appropriate.
Does anyone on the board have any comments on this? Anyone in the public like to speak about this?
Is somebody on Zoom?
Someone on Zoom? Okay, please go ahead. Thank you, Sage.
Mayor Banger,
Yes,
can you hear me?
we can hear you. We just can't see you, but we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I don't know why that's.
Oh, now we can see you. Yes. You're usually here in person. I'm upset you're not here tonight.
My car wouldn't start,
Okay.
so I was intending to come. Just quickly, I was just trying to comment, when you asked for comments on the last thing.
Oh, sure.
I did want a brief comment, two things. One was, following up a little bit on Trustee Stevenson's point. The towers, I don't know if Diamond has looked at or has assure you all that, are there any other styles or designs in addition to multiple towers being one thing to look at, as Trustee Stevens suggested, are there any, let's face it, we need the tower, the reception on the beaches is horrible as well as elsewhere in the village. But is it possible it's more attractive having, that tower is obviously pretty ugly. And my only question on that was on the aesthetics, are there other options? Do other villages and towns elsewhere have towers that somehow are a little bit more aesthetically pleasing? As you may know, in New York City, there's all these scaffoldings all around, and there are actually companies who over time now develop more aesthetically pleasing scaffoldings rather than the old-fashioned just metal and wood one. So that was one question. The other was just for the attorney, person board, is it possible to get, have we discussed getting any kind of most favored nations clause from Diamond with respect to the rent so that can we have a representation from them that this is the best deal they give to everybody? In other words, we know that the rent deal we're getting is at least as good as anybody else is getting. If anybody else gets something better, that they'll adjust that ours.
With respect to that final question, through our procurement process, and it was pretty intense, and we actually asked them to come back with a best and final offer. We went through a pretty rigorous procedure, and this was by far the best deal economically for the village.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we can talk to them about other designs of towers. I know that if the tower is to include Motorola and, you know, up to possibly 4 different carriers, it could not be something where it was completely concealed, because we wouldn't get the apparatus that's necessary for so many carriers to be in one location without making the tower significantly higher. So there was that concern as well. So we think what they've come up with really is really the best solution for the village. You know, unfortunately, towers are just not that attractive, but they're necessary today for, you know, everyone's communication as well as emergency services communication. So it's something I think after a while people won't focus so much on it, and they'll be very glad that they can have a line that doesn't get dropped in the middle of their conversation. But I appreciate the question. We can certainly ask them again if there are any other solutions. But we did go over some various solutions, and considering the height of the tower was something we wanted to look at. And so to be able not to have to go up any higher, it had to have the apparatus on the exterior of the pole.
Totally agree. Yeah, just was wondering if other places around the country might have done something that might be a little more pleasing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Mr. Zinder. Thank you for joining us.
Do we have anything else?
Did you want to talk anything about the parking lots, or no, Mr. Zinder?
No.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to say anything about parking lots? Anyone else on Zoom's stage? Okay.
Yes, we have it right here. Oh, okay. I was just.
What, we have to come up to the microphone too. Sorry.
I just, my name is Susan Madonia, and I own some property on Job's Lane. And I just was concerned about the amending. My question to you is, if this is passed, what effect does it have on historic Job's Lane in the future, if anything, from the front, or easement issues or greenery issues? I'm concerned about my property at 36 Job's Lane, especially with the courtyard property unresolved. And if I had any concerns, would they be considered, and would there be any new limitations? That's basically it. Thank you.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so this, you know, the parking lot behind Job's Lane is a public parking lot. This is really trying to control further development of parking lots by private entities, so that, again, there's green space that's included now as a mandatory requirement, 10%. Again, the ability to have a cross access with a neighboring property, hopefully to cut down on some curb cuts, and also again, the idea that they should be screened from a public right-of-way. So that I think this is a positive, further enhancements for parking lots as opposed to making them not as attractive.
So there wouldn't be any limitations, or if I had concerns about anything in the future, they would still be addressed.
What do you mean, though?
Well, with, it said limited screening, maybe there might need to be more screening.
Oh.
If there's an easement, how big would the easement be? Could you,
Well, that would probably be done by the planning board.
So there would be no
When a site
limit-
plan comes before the village, that this is just basically putting in minimum requirements.
okay, so
For
there
example,
would be,
green space, as I said, screening, so they could look at an individual
They would.
application and say, we think that you need some more screening here because this is still too visible.
okay, so they would take into consideration, the neighbor's issue, and there wouldn't be any new limitations from the amendment, because I haven't really read the whole
Yeah,
amendment.
I
But
don't think-
limitation on who? There is a limitation in that you need a minimum amount of screening.
Or maybe
Parking
two,
lots, right?
or maybe,
These are only for parking lots.
She doesn't have parking on her property.
Hmm?
Do you? Do you have parking on your property?
well, that's another issue. It's just that the parking next door, how everything would relate, I just was hoping there'd be no limitations set for historic areas. If you wanted to have more beauty or more space in the easement, or any future projects coming up, would there be any limitations for this situation? I mean, would this affect
I mean,
the
still, any
historic-
application would have to go through
The boards.
board process.
So there would be no limitation to the boards from this amendment.
There are limitations.
Uh-huh.
Your question is so vague, I don't think we can comfortably answer it. If you're more specific, we can, but all this does is impose minimum green space requirements, requires cross-access where it's appropriate.
Right now, we have none. So this is actually putting into effect a green space minimum requirement.
Okay, but,
Because right now, there's nothing.
right, but in certain areas where if there was minimum, could there be more added?
Planning board would make that
The
decision.
planning board would have to make that decision.
so
It's not
there-
made by legislation. It would be made by
So
a site-specific application
each
coming before the
situation would
planning
be
board.
Different, and
Just like
you-
in any
you-
application
and
before the
you
planning
would
board.
listen to somebody involved.
It would be up to the planning board.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so from what I understood, so to my question, there's really no effect on the historic area. So from the front,
It's the require-
Well, it's
whatever
actually
the-
requiring screening and green space and parking lots throughout the village,
So would
whether
it
it's in the
set-
historic area or not.
would it set a limitation to a walkway versus an easement?
This is just addressing parking lots, Sue. It's not addressing walkways or,
Well, it said easements, so I wasn't sure.
it's talking about cross easements between parking lots. So
Okay.
it's,
All right,
yeah,
all right,
I think
I
think
just,
you'll
you answered
you'll
my
be fine with this.
question.
No,
That's
I
fine.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Because it was kind of tricky to understand, because when I read the code, the zoning code, I just didn't understand, how it related, to my concerns. So basically, I don't have any concerns at this point.
I don't think so, because
Okay.
again, this would be a public parking lot. And
Okay.
for example, the Job Lane parking lot behind you is village property, it's not a private parking lot, so.
No, but I'm just saying with easements, I just didn't understand that, because if there potentially ever was more easements, would they be able to have more greenery than minimal? So I didn't understand if there were limitations set.
No, it's, again, each application has to go before the
Okay,
planning board, and the
that's
planning board
great.
would see
That's-
everything on a site-specific basis.
Okay, perfect, that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to
Okay,
know,
okay,
thank you.
all right, thank you. Okay, if there are no other comments, then I will make a motion to close this public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, I will now open the next public hearing on local law 32 of 2024, a local law amending chapter 11043 of the Village Code, vehicles and traffic by updating and amending Schedule L, stopping, standing, and parking restrictions. I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So this law is actually taking into account what Mr. Brody had come to speak about some time ago in a former village board meeting where he was concerned about the south side parking restrictions on Halsey Avenue. This is actually after review by the police chief, our traffic consultant, and myself. We have decided we are going to eliminate the parking restrictions on the south side of Halsey Avenue. This is also talking about, at the request of the fire marshal, Dean McNamara, to put a fire zone in front of the movie theater so that when that reopens this winter, there will be a fire zone directly in front of the movie theater in case, God forbid, there's a fire and the fire department has to get in to access the movie theater where there could be hundreds of people there. So that is what this is about. So at this point, we have a motion, a second. We've opened the public hearing. Does any of the trustees have comments on this? Anyone from the public want to speak about this topic? Sage, anyone? Okay, well then I will make a motion to close the public hearing on local law 32 of 2024. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we'll go to correspondence to the board. I will ask Scott Russell, the administrator, to address that.
So we have correspondence from an Amanda Taylor, who has raised several issues with reference to her property. These are issues that the village has already addressed or is in the process of addressing.
I think she abuts a CPF property.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, thank you for that. Now why don't we go to the suggested, public comment, I'm sorry. Sorry. We go to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to be heard? Do we have anyone on the list there?
I have a Rob Coburn.
Rob, please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. Good evening. Item 14 on your agenda tonight is a resolution to authorize hiring a consultant to review data and make recommendations regarding the expansion of the historic district. As a champion of historic preservation who lives in a contributing structure and who has restored and preserved a lot of historic and historically sensitive buildings on the East End in the last 25 years, I'm inclined to support this move, but with a few crucial caveats. So I'd just like to put out some caveats. First, we should all remember that no matter how much we support preservation, a historic district overlay is effectively a taking of rights from property owners. And there must be a compelling public interest that cannot be addressed in a less burdensome way for such an overlay to be fair. Second, the village must do more than simply say in the comprehensive plan that it wants to protect and preserve historic architecture. It's a noble goal, but there needs to be a continual case made for why such measures are in the interests of village residents, either economically, aesthetically, and in other ways. There's a constant need for education and reinforcement of why preservation matters. Third, the village should do or at least consider doing what other municipalities have done with respect to historic districts, namely to provide some form of tangible benefits to owners in the district. Examples include preservation grants, landscaping reimbursement, and even tax reductions. Right now, Southampton Village's process only provides a burden and a detriment to owners in the historic district. And the code actually was written to say that it was meant to enhance properties for residents, including owners, but it's a burden at the moment. So that's something that I'd ask you to consider as part of this process. Fourth, the village must find ways to equalize the code between properties in the historic and those outside it. We're creating a haves and have-nots. The separate is inherently unequal, as we've learned in other ways. And there's not enough time in this forum to discuss why closing the gap is important, but it is important, and I'd be happy to discuss it with any of you individually. As to the specific proposal tonight, the public deserves to know what instructions have been or will be given to the consultants before you spend $50,000 of our money. What hypothesis is driving the need for these consultants? What criteria will they use in making their recommendation, and how will owners of properties potentially impacted by those recommendations be notified? On the last point, any recommended expansion should be specifically described in notice to the public, mailed individually to the owner of any property that would be affected, and held open for at least 2 meetings if it comes to a hearing to allow time for public discussion and written submissions. I'd note that those 3 conditions should be included in any resolution related to Chapter 65. It didn't happen for the last 2 resolutions, and not fair to the public, and it's not fair particularly to owners in the historic district. I'll try to wrap it up here now. So, I guess I'd just say that a little bit of history is important here. Chapter 65, the Historic Code, almost didn't pass back in 1986 when it was proposed. There's a lot of public support for it. There's a lot of concern about property rights, and it almost didn't pass. And it was passed with two promises. There's a couple of people in this room who may remember this. I wasn't here, but I read about it. I've done some research on it. One was that the purview of historic preservation would be limited to what was seen from the public right-of-way. Mm-hmm. That was removed by this board a year and a half ago. But that was, without that, we wouldn't have a historic district. Without that provision back in 1986, the historic district resolution would have failed. So that should never have been taken away. The public doesn't really have a right to know what owners of the historic district are doing in the back of their house. They don't, any more than they do on other houses. But the other promise that was made besides that provision was a promise from the mayor at the time that this chapter would be administered with humility and sensitivity. Those were his words at the time. And I just want us to remember that that was a promise. It's a fair and logical promise. So, just to wrap up, if you could let the public know tonight what the hypothesis of breach of the consultant is or has been related, if you can keep us informed on their findings and the ongoing reasons and benefits for maintaining, possibly expanding the district, and notify any individual homeowners affected by the consultant's recommendations. Those are the comments I'd like to make. I'd just wrap up by saying, historic districts are not theme parks. They're neighborhoods, and historic houses are not museums. They're homes. And that the humility of the use of these properties and these neighborhoods is part of the overall humility I think we need to have as we think about expanding the historic district. Thanks.
Okay, just to answer a couple of things there. The village applied for a grant, and we received $40,000 from the New York State Historic Preservation Office as a certified local government grant program. So again, it's not costing the village taxpayer the $49,500. It's substantially less than that because of the grant we received from the state. And all this is doing in the resolution number 14 is asking a consultant who is well known, Preservation Studios, who has the appropriate background and experience necessary to work with village staff to conduct an intensive level survey and prepare the required nomination. They are going to evaluate the properties in these areas to determine whether it is worth doing.
The whole village.
It's not the whole. No, it's not the entire village. No. There are specific areas that have been looked at that are sensitive, and those are the ones that are going to be addressed.
Can they be described to the public more?
Lewis Street is one of them. Halsey Street is one of them. Little Plains at Toilsome is one of them. Again, I don't have it all. This is what I'm doing from memory. But there are specific areas that have been raised as areas of concern because of teardowns and things like that. And so all this is doing is allowing the village to expend a grant that we already received to have a survey done of properties in these sensitive areas of the village. No. I don't want to get into a back and forth about it. I just want to explain those are the comments because you said something about the money we were spending and then what we were doing. And this is actually not putting anything into effect. It is merely doing a survey of the properties to understand whether they are worth preserving or not. Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Mark.
Mark Epley, 158 Harvest Lane. I'd also like to make a comment about Resolution 14. I'm happy that you're looking at this. I'll tell you, be cautious of the unintended consequences of actions like this. So, we mentioned Lewis Street. Lewis Street, the reason why the historic district didn't go all the way down Lewis Street is because there was a very active member in the village at the time who stopped it at his house because he knew the negative consequences to his property values. So, same thing on Windmill Lane. The reason why he doesn't go all the way up Windmill Lane, again, a very active member in the village at the time, stopped the historic district from going there. So, look, the ARB has many challenges when properties come in front of them. And most of their teeth is really built around the historic district and what people can do inside the historic district. So I understand the concept here, but I will also tell you that the Pierce Concert House was a house that was left off of the historic audit that was done in the 1970s. And it was one of the oldest structures around here. And what happened was, because that was left off and the file didn't support historic preservation on it, the historic preservationists on the ARB missed it, and because it wasn't in the file. And a demolition permit was issued by the ARB to be able to knock the building down. And I got blindsided by it because I had no idea. And we ended up with a lawsuit against the village, and we ultimately resolved it all over a long period of time. But I'll go back to what it is the survey is only as good as the information that's being put in. So if we're looking at the homes in these different areas to try to protect them, let's make sure that they're doing the type of research that will prevent a historic structure like Pierce Concert's house from being missed in the village. So that's my input on that. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that, Mark. And again, we do have confidence in this Preservation Studios. They have done work not only obviously for the village before, but many other municipalities. They are definitely well qualified, but we can also reiterate to them that we want to make sure that they are looking out for structures that are truly historic and should be preserved in the village. So thank you for that. And I understand, the other comments, but I would say that most of what is referred to as the estate section is in the historic district, and I have seen no problem with the property values in the estate section of this village. Anyway, that's all my comment. But any other comments from the public? Sheila, please come forward.
Not on this issue.
Oh, no. Well, you have to talk about this issue because we opened this public hearing.
No, this isn't a public hearing.
Oh, it's not. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. You're right.
I'm
still confused. Sorry.
Separate issue. I hesitate to have to say this. I'm not someone who usually likes to complain or speak negatively, but I've been disappointed in the way the process of things in the village has been operating. I came to this board as a private citizen in July, or it was the summer anyway, I think it was July, talking about the cutting of trees on property, and I was told to bring it to the planning commission, which I did. And so since I went to the very next planning commission meeting, and I've been to every planning commission meeting since then, as a private citizen, and I've been told that this is all still on hold. We came to an agreement about a very small regulation that was nothing like what I would like to see, but it was a beginning. And I've been told that it's because the attorney is so backed up. Now that's been 5 months, maybe 4, since the planning commission started. And I just think that's not a good way for a village to be operating. So, no, I'm not criticizing you personally. I'm criticizing the workload that seems to be put on this person or persons, whoever is doing it. And I think the village should look at how process happens. A lot of things that are proposed and are going through the right channels seem to be very delayed. I don't know if it's intentional or if it's just bureaucracy, but that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila. Any other comments that would like? Minnie Fortin?
You go first.
Hi, good evening. Mindy Fortin, 190 Little Plants Road. I will say, I think we were one of the last houses that got approval for demolition before we actually bought the house. if we didn't have that approval, I don't think we would have spent the money, because it's a lot of money to spend on a house that, one, we did bring somebody in to see if it was salvageable, and he didn't think so, but if the ARB thought so, we would have been miserable to spend that much money and not be able to have a nice house. So I do worry about the property values there, in that sense of it. I also worry about there's certain homes, like a certain ranch on a certain street, that is just really not very good looking, and
But that's what the survey is to do, Mindy, is to look at those and then make an evaluation whether it's worth saving the ranch or not.
right, I agree, but it's there are some things that are not worth saving just because they're older.
But that would all be taken into consideration by the consultants that are gonna do this survey for us.
But is it also a historic village district? Once during the ARB, they said that at any point they could designate a house outside the historic district historic. So,
Well, they have to follow certain criteria.
but is there any way of doing it by house versus whole complete area?
There are different ways to approach this, yes, but I mean, we need someone to do the survey to tell us what the makeup of the village is first, before we can select
I just worry
homes.
that homes will be harder to sell if people don't know if they can change them to their liking or not. Spend $6 million on a home that you really want to tear down, but you don't know if you can until you spend the money. That's, that's a lot to. Or are people gonna let their homes just fall into disrepair so they're not salvageable?
Yeah, no, I understand your
It
point.
really looks bad.
All right.
Okay?
No, thank you, Mindy,
Thank
thank you. Ms. Allen.
Good evening, Kimberly Allen, 39 Potato Field Lane. I just want to start out by saying very good work on the cell tower.
Thank you.
So I have a couple questions, and that is, what are the consultants going to use as their guidelines for determining what is a valuable historical structure?
I'd have to have them speak to that.
Okay, and the reason why I ask that is because I've been around a long time. I remember this architectural design guidelines and poured through it.
I think that dates from about 2000.
It does.
Because
So-
I was on the board at the time and I remember
Exactly.
working on that.
Exactly. So that's 25 years old.
Correct.
And if you fall within a historic district to obtain a certificate of appropriateness on alterations or demolitions or whatever else, you need to follow these design guidelines. So it just occurred that perhaps we're putting the cart before the horse by having consultants come here and define what structures are valuable before we really understand what structures are valuable. Because in these design guidelines, they're sorely outdated.
No, I think actually the next step is we're gonna update that book, actually, the design
Okay.
guidelines. So that's part of this process.
Okay, good. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And then second of all, it's my understanding now that when you seek a certificate of appropriateness, now landscaping is included in that analysis by the ARB. And there's nothing in here or in the code about landscaping that I found, so if I'm off base, let me know. And then the last thing is, I guess a code was changed last year, which I didn't follow, because I don't come to every meeting, that if you're in the historic district and something is being altered on the property that cannot be viewed from the street, that is still taken into consideration. So I just say there are a lot of individuals that have structures in the back, and now they have to think about that in a different way, and I would be, I agree with Mr. Coburn's point that this has a lot of pieces and levels to it, and communicating more would probably be very valuable. Maybe having a town hall and having people come in and understanding what the current historic districts are and what the bar they have to meet for doing X, Y, and Z. And then where you're looking and what you're looking for, because right now, this was the first I heard of it. I don't disagree, but I think it needs to be a very good communication process.
Yeah.
So, again, thank you for the cell
Well, again,
tower. Good job.
as I said, this is just doing a survey of what is out there. So that's all that this is doing at this point.
As long as that
Because we
survey
just don't know.
is what we think is important too.
Right.
So understanding that criteria, I'd be interested in hearing that.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kimberly. Any other comments? Sage, anyone on Zoom? Okay. If there are no public comments, then I will close the public comment period of this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Now we can go to the suggestions, resolutions, and Lynn, let you take the first one, please.
Number
Thank you
one.
for coming.
Number one, resolve the claims for the warrant dated November 14, 2024, totaling $1,120,752.18. Warrant number A14, general. $117,535.36. Warrant number H6, capital. $234.47. Warrant number T11, trust. And $19,723.48 warrant number A15 utility are audited and approved. I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye. Number two, resolve the reading of the minutes for the September 2024 Board of Trustee meetings are dispensed, accepted as filed by the village clerk, and the actions taken at those meetings are hereby ratified and approved. I'll make the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm gonna let Eileen take the next one.
Yes, whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Southampton is considering a proposed local law entitled the Local Law Amending Chapter 116-38B Site Plan Review, Objectives of Site Plan Procedure and Review, 116-14I Design Requirements for Non-Residential Parking and Truck Loading Areas, and 116-14K Village Business District of the Village Code to require minimum green space areas and screening to commercial parking lots and areas, and to require cross-access between those parking lot areas and adjacent properties through easements in accordance with the recommendation of the Southampton Village Comprehensive Plan Update of 2022. And whereas the Village of Southampton's Planning Director has conducted a review of that proposed action, and whereas the matter was referred to the Suffolk County Planning Commission for review pursuant to General Municipal Law Section 239M, and whereas on October 28th, 2024, the Suffolk County Planning Commission staff issued a letter of local determination, and whereas a public hearing was held by the Village Board of Trustees on October 10th, 2024, at which time all persons either for or against the amendment were heard, and whereas the public hearing was closed, but after consideration of public comments and making some changes to the proposed law, the Board of Trustees reopened the matter and held a further public hearing on November 14th, 2024, at which time all persons either for or against the local law were heard. And whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Southampton has determined that this proposed local law is considered an unlisted action under 6 New York Code of Rules and Regulations, Part 617.4, provisions of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. And whereas the Southampton Village Planning Director prepared a short environmental assessment form Part 1 and a full environmental assessment form Part 2, dated November 6, 2024, which identified no or small impact may occur, and a full EAF form Part 3, which determined there would be no significant adverse impact on the environment. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby assumes lead agency status as there are no other involved agencies, and issues a negative declaration pursuant to SECRET as there are no significant negative environmental impacts anticipated by this zoning amendment, and be it further resolved that local law number 31 of 2024 is hereby adopted. That's your motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Okay, thank you.
Number 4, whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Southampton is considering a local law amending Chapter 110-43 of the Village Code, Vehicles and Traffic, by updating and amending Schedule L, stopping, standing, and parking restrictions, and whereas a public hearing was held by the Village Board on November 14th, 2024, at which time all persons either for or against said amendment were heard. Now therefore be it resolved that local law number 32 of 2024 is hereby adopted. That's your motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Again, this is referring to the parking
fire zone.
restrictions on the south side of Halsey Avenue, as well as the fire zone in front of the movie theater. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Number 5, whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Southampton has determined that this proposed local law is considered an unlisted action under 6 New York Code of Rules and Regulations, Part 617.4, provisions of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby assumes lead agency status, as there are no other involved agencies, and be it further resolved that the Village Board of Trustees directs that a public hearing be held as a hybrid in-person Zoom meeting on December 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Village Meeting Room in the Southampton Village Hall, located at 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York, 11968, to hear any and all persons either for or against a proposed local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter A 122, Outdoor Sidewalk Dining Rules and Regulations of the Southampton Village Code by increasing the permit application fee, extending the license period, as well as regulating the use of table umbrellas. That's your motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Just a discussion. So there, right now, the code has outdoor dining cease in the village at November 1st. Many of the restaurateurs in the village came to me, actually wrote me a letter and said they would like that period extended. So we are now extending it through the end of the year. There will be a grace period this year, but this local law will change that so that in future years, they will be allowed to have outdoor dining all the way through the end of the year without any interruption. So that's what this really is doing. So
Increases the permit fee also.
and it also increases the permit fee because they will be able to have outdoor dining for 9 months out of the year. So at this time, we have a motion. Second?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
All right, number 6, whereas Chapter 116-5F of the Southampton Village Code authorizes a special permit for a mixed-use development in the Village Business District, which includes guest units for resort hotel use and dwelling units for workforce housing. And whereas the Board of Trustees is in possession of an application submitted by 71 Hill Street LLC seeking a special permit to develop a mixed-use development in the Village Business District consisting of 40 hotel rooms, 8 workforce housing units, and 2 staff housing units. And whereas the property is located at 71 Hill Street in the Village Business Zoning District and further identified on the Suffolk County Tax Map as District 904, Section 6, Block 1, Lot 8. And whereas an initial public hearing was held by the Village Board of Trustees on August 8th, 2024, at which time the plan was presented to the Board of Trustees and the public and all persons either for or against the said special permit were heard. And whereas the public hearing was kept open for a continued hearing on September 12th, 2024, at which time the plan with some proposed revisions was again discussed with the Board of Trustees and the public and all persons either for or against said special permit were heard. And whereas the public hearing was kept open for, and whereas the Board of Trustees
Well, at that time, the record was then closed.
Yeah, the record was then closed, sorry. And then whereas the Board of Trustees determined that certain additional documents needed to be submitted by the applicant, including an updated floor plan, and therefore reopened the public hearing for the purpose of accepting additional documents. And whereas the applicant thereafter submitted to the village a new version of the above referenced project, which was different from the plan discussed at the previous hearings. And whereas the Board of Trustees determined the public should have the opportunity to weigh in on the new version of the proposed project. Now therefore be it resolved that the village board hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held at a hybrid in-person Zoom meeting on December 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Village Meeting Hall at Southampton Village Hall located at 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York, to hear any and all persons either for or against a proposed special permit for a workforce housing development and resort hotel use at 71 Hill Street in the Village of Southampton pursuant to Section 116-5F of the Village Code of Southampton. The property is further identified again on the Suffolk County Tax Map as 900, Section 6, Block 1, Lot 8, and located on the northeast corner of Hill Street and Meridian Way. And be it further resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish and post the notice of the public hearing. That's your motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the allocation of the received amount of the 2024 Community Development Block Grant Funds, with $10,000 allocated to Southampton Daycare Center and $10,000 allocated to Heart of the Hamptons, and authorize the mayor to to execute any documentation that may be required to receive such funds. I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves application submission of the 2025 Community Development Block Grant for Southampton Daycare Center and Hardly Hamptons, and authorize the mayor or designate to execute any documentation that may be required regarding the allocation of received funds. We have a motion?
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Resolved, the mayor is authorized to sign the amended contract received from Johnson Controls on behalf of the Village of Southampton, subject to a prior review by our village attorney. The original contract was board approved on July 13th, 2023. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Just a discussion. So this is increasing some of the solar arrays behind Job's Lane in the village parking lot. It will not incur any additional costs because we had a savings brought about from another part of the contract. So the price of the contract remains the same, but we will get some additional solar arrays for the village. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Whereas the Department of Public Works has historically retained independent contractors to assist the village with snow removal during significant snowfalls, and whereas for planning purposes, the Superintendent of Public Works desires to enter into contracts with the independent contractors in advance to ensure that the village has sufficient help when needed, and whereas the town of Southampton has previously approved non-prevailing wage rental rates for the town highway department for the rental of equipment for sanding and snow removal, and whereas the village has received same and determined they are appropriate and reasonable, now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the usage of the non-prevailing wage rental rates adopted by the town of Southampton for 2024 for use by the Village Department of Public Works when contracting for rental equipment for sanding and snow removal for the 2024-2025 season, and be it further resolved that the mayor is authorized to sign contracts with said independent contractors for snow removal for the 2024-2025 season upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Public Works and the approval as to form of the village attorney. I will make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Roy.
Oh, sorry. Whereas the townwide ambulance service, Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Incorporated, has asked that the Village of Southampton to take over dispatch responsibilities for SVA, and whereas SVA and the village have agreed that the village shall take over dispatch responsibilities for SVA, now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees authorizes the Mayor of the Village Board of Trustees to execute an agreement with Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Incorporated for emergency dispatch services effective January 1st, 2025, subject to the approval of the village attorney. So moved.
I'll second. All in favor? Any discussion? All in,
Question, where's the dispatch going to be for the SBA now? It's going to be at the
it will be under Brian LaMonica's wise guidance.
Very good, excellent. And is there a cost involved?
Yes, the contract stipulates that the village will receive $75,000 on an annual basis with an escalation clause. And I want to thank also Robin Brown for some of her assistance with this.
And might I add, there's no additional need for dispatchers.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, excellent. Brian, you just got some more business.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the amendment to the Southampton Village Volunteer Ambulance Bylaws, Article 10, Section D, voting. So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Just to explain this, so the Southampton Village Volunteer Ambulance have the right to do their own bylaws, but they must then be approved, I guess, by the village board. So they have changed how they're establishing those with enough time to be able to be considered full-time volunteers when they vote. So this is just, again, confirming what the village chiefs of the volunteer ambulance corps have requested as a change in their bylaws. So we have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Whereas the village code, Southampton Village Code was adopted in 1982 And whereas the code has been repeatedly amended over the years in an effort to keep the village up to date on municipal requirements, as well as to develop and maintain the village as a vibrant, evolving community. And whereas, as these amendments over the past 40-plus years were necessarily made in a piecemeal fashion, resulting in some inconsistent and outdated provisions, and whereas the number of additions to the code has also resulted in a lack of spaces in the code for the appropriate locating of new provisions, resulting in a less than user-friendly code, and whereas the Village Board of Trustees has consulted with General Code, a nationally recognized expert in municipal codes, to perform a complex recodification of the code, including a comprehensive review of all legislation, which will ensure that the code is in line with New York law and also meets the needs of the village. And whereas the review will also update the code by addressing organization, format, style, and content, and providing the necessary room for the code to continue to develop and grow with the village in the coming years. Now therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the mayor to enter into a contract with General Code to perform this needed update and overhaul of the code, subject to the approval of the village attorney at a cost not to exceed $21,000. I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So just to explain, this company is actually who provides the current updates to the code and has done so for decades, as a matter of fact. And they have the majority of municipalities in the state of New York. So they are well versed in this. The attorney and I had a very good meeting with them, and I think this will be very helpful in trying to, again, reshape our code and simplify it in some ways. Any other comments?
It'll make room in the code to put new laws into an orderly position in the code, which we do not have now.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Number 14, whereas the adopted 2022 Comprehensive Master Plan update recommended that the village update and expand its existing historic districts, and whereas Preservation Studios LLC previously conducted a reconnaissance level survey report on behalf of the village and the Village Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation, identifying areas of historic structures in preparation for a potential expansion of the village historic districts. And whereas the village determined that the identified northeast and southern expansion areas are the most vulnerable to demolition and insensitive redevelopment in the village, and whereas the Board of Assessment Review and Historic Preservation and the Village Board of Trustees have determined that potential expansion of the historic districts, as outlined in the report, is both appropriate and desired for further study, and whereas said potential expansion requires an intensive level survey and submission of a National Register nomination to expand the existing village and National Register districts to the northwest and southern sections of the village for inclusion on the Southampton Village and National Register of Historic Places, and whereas Preservation Studios has the appropriate background and experience necessary to work with village staff to conduct said intensive level survey and prepare the required nomination on behalf of the village and negotiate the same as required, and whereas the Board of Trustees applied for and has accepted a $40,000 reimbursement grant from New York State's Historic Preservation Office Certified Local Government Grant Program with in-kind staff and volunteer effort valued at an estimated $35,000 toward completion of the Historic District Intense Level Survey. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees authorizes the mayor to sign upon approval of the village attorney as to form a contract with Preservation Studios for the preparation of said nomination and any required supporting documentation at a cost not to exceed $49,500. That's your motion.
I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Discussion?
Sure.
I'd
Sure,
like to make-
there should be a second first. Anyone seconding?
Second.
Okay.
I'd like to make some comments, and it reflects a little bit what Mr. Coburn also had to say. The historic district is an important tool for the preservation of the character of the village. I believe more detailed information needs to be given to the public, in particular those homeowners who will be affected. As indicated in the resolution, in 2022, Preservation Studios conducted a reconnaissance level survey and identified 4 major expansion areas for the historic district as follows. Phase 1, southern expansion section of the village, which includes Cameron, Meeting House, Herrick, Little Plains, Lewis, Old Town, Bus Crossings, Old Town Crossing, Hudson Lane, part of Windmill Lane. Northwest expansion section of the village includes Moses Lane, Armand, Henry, Howell, Halsey, and Cooper. And then they also recommended a phase two for the Hill Historic District, Hillcrest, Miller, Windward, and the northeast expansion section of the village for West Prospect, High Street, Prospect, North Main, Elpot Alley, Layton Avenue, Maple Street, Pulaski Avenue, Pulaski Street, Elm Street, the remainder of it, Pelletreau, Van Brunt, Woley Street, John Street, Ozzie Avenue, Osborne Avenue, and Hampton Road. Although being part of a historic district is an important preservation tool, it also requires the homeowners to take on additional burdens. I am of the opinion that the homeowners that are being included in these expansions should be duly notified at this time and informed what is required of them in the event their property is listed as a contributing or non-contributing structure. I think we all agree on the importance of preserving the village's historic character. My concern, however, is not just about consultation after the fact, but ensuring that homeowners have a proactive understanding of what being part of a historic district will mean for them. This is a significant responsibility we're asking them to take on, and it's only fair that they have clear, comprehensive information up front so they're not caught off guard by unexpected requirements or restrictions.
Thank you.
So it's positive in nature. I just feel that, I just found about this resolution in the last couple of days, and many homeowners are not aware of what we're doing, and I think it's just important that we be proactive and give that information and let the owners know exactly what this means.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
You mean, I'm sorry, you mean after the survey is completed?
Well, it's before the survey is completed, because once the survey is completed, it goes to the ARB, and the ARB already acts on it. So the homeowners already should know ahead of time that the survey is being completed, what streets are being looked at, and be able to give already some feedback or background or what they feel about being included in the historic district. And we have contributing properties and non-contributing properties, but even the non-contributing properties have a certain burden within a historic district.
I guess my question is basically based on the fact that if a survey is done, that is not enacted into policy until this board approves it.
This is really just, again, using the grant money that we've already been awarded to have a consultant go out and evaluate the different buildings that we have in the village. And I think, actually, you railed off all those streets. I think getting that for under $50,000 is not so bad. It's a lot of work that goes into this, especially to look at it in terms of the National Register nomination schedule. So there's quite a bit of work involved. And so I think we're very lucky that we got the award from the state of New York. They don't award that to every community. I think the state recognized the historical importance of Southampton in granting that award. And I think we need to know what we have, and this is doing just that. It's actually doing an evaluation of the current state of the buildings in these parts of the village.
Right. If you look at the resolution issued in 2022, they already have identified the areas and the streets. So it's something that's already ongoing.
That's correct. This has been going on for a long time.
Right. And all this is doing now is identifying which structures are contributing and which structures are non-contributing, but we already have determined the areas, the streets.
Correct.
And I don't think the public is aware of that. And I think the public should be made aware, and especially the streets that are involved right now.
Well, as you said, this is a process that we've been doing now for a couple of years. And they did the windscreen, I think that's what they call it, a windscreen survey, where they basically drive down the streets and say, this one looks like something that we should look more carefully at. So this is the next phase of doing deeper analysis of the individual buildings. So I know you weren't on the board, but this has been going on for 2 years. We applied for a grant from the state of New York. We were lucky enough to receive $40,000 from the state of New York to do this. So it won't be a burden to the taxpayer, but it will allow us to know what is the makeup of the houses in the historic sections of the village. So anyway, I appreciate your comments.
Well, Mayor, I agree with you that we should do a census and see what the assets are in the village that are worth preserving, but I share Trustee Simeone's concern. I just want clarification that once this survey is done, this does not go directly to the ARB for them to decide what's going to be made historic or not, that it still stays within the purview of this board before it goes to the ARB, that we get to decide based on what this survey determines about what should happen to the historic
I
district.
don't know. You're asking me, I don't know the answer, I have to look at it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is it goes straight to the ARB right now.
I think you might be right about that. But there is a
There's public hearings on this, though.
there was a resolution in 2022. This
Absolutely.
information is out there. I'm not sure what you think we should do to educate them, but you should make a recommendation about what we should do and how we should do it. So, yeah, because that way, then the board can consider exactly what are you saying a letter to everybody or like?
Probably a letter of communication and outlining exactly how the process works and then what the responsibilities are within a historic district so that people can come forward and give their opinion.
May I say something,
Sure.
please? I understand, trustee, where you're coming from, and I think we're all in agreement. I think we might be hearing it differently, but this is just the beginning of the conversation. And absolutely, we definitely we are being transparent, and the conversation has started. This is just another area of a little bit more detail. And of course, we want to have our residents involved with this, but there's just certain timelines to be in compliance with the grant. It does not take away from what you're expressing and what Ms. Allen was expressing. I think we're all in agreement with that. It's just how we're doing this. And absolutely, I think that things can be added to or adjusted with the survey.
Yeah, at this time, I don't want to lose the grant from New York State. If we lose the use of the grant, we may never receive another grant in this village.
I'm not against doing the survey.
Okay.
He just wants to publicize it.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to have you help publicize it, although we have been working on this for 2 years.
Yes, but I don't think the public is aware of what was done in 2022.
Okay.
And what is in that, so maybe we
Okay.
can even distribute that study that was done in 2022, so the public can
Sure,
see
we can
exactly,
do that. We can
see
put it in the next
exactly what
newsletter.
this is all about,
Yeah.
and so there's an understanding.
Put it on the website.
Yeah.
We can add it to the website.
Be terrific.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Ed?
Whereas the village of Southampton has been awarded town 2023 CPF grants for Wicker Park Road, Phillips Pond, and Old Town Pond, Viceville, and Old Town Pond, Viceville, and whereas the village seeks to engage the services of Lewis K. McLean Associates, LKMA, to provide professional engineering services for said grant project, and whereas LKMA has submitted a proposal to provide engineering services at a cost of $68,400. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the village board of trustees hereby authorizes and approves LKMA to provide engineering services for the green infrastructure projects related to Wickapoe Road, Phillips Pond, and Old Town Pond, subject to approval by the village attorney at a cost of $68,400, to be paid for by H 801-6.2 Wickapoe Road grant in the amount of $19,200, H 8017.2 Phillips Pond grant in the amount of $18,800, H 8015.2 Old Town Pond grant in the amount of $30,400. I make the motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Whereas the Board of Trustees accepts an anonymous donation in the amount of $2,000 for the purchase of larger trees on Gin Lane. Now therefore be it resolved, the budget is hereby amended to reflect the donation as follows. Increase A.2703, gifts and donations in the amount of $2,000. Increase A.8560.2, shade trees in the amount of $2,000. I'll make the motion.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
I'd
Any
like
opposed?
to comment that, sorry,
Just one. Go ahead, sorry.
I'd just like to make the comment that as liaison to the Village Tree Committee, I thank the anonymous donor.
We all do.
Thank you very much, Len. We had a motion and a second. Did we approve that? Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves Jamie Ligwin as a probationary member to the Southampton Village Fire Department, Agawam Engine Company 1, effective November 14th, 2024. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves Devin Somai as a probationary member of the Southampton Village Fire Department, Fire Police Company 1, effective November 14th, 2024. So moved.
Second, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, Robin?
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the request for Southampton Village Christmas Decorations Committee to hold their annual holiday festivities on Saturday, November 30th, 2024, which will include the Parade of Lights, Agawam Park tree lighting ceremony with singing, fireworks display, and the holiday window decoration contest. Is there a motion?
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you can tell Mark and Andrew are on for another year.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the request submitted by the Southampton Cultural Center to host their annual 2025 summer concerts in the park and Shakespeare in the Park series at Agawam Park at 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. based on the event schedule. I make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees recognizes the last Friday in April as National Arbor Day. The Board of Trustees approves the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and the Tree Committee to celebrate this day, Friday, April 25th, 2025, by planting a tree in the village's right-of-way in front of Our Lady of the Hamptons School. I'll make that motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the Fata Fun, Inc. to host a fashion event on Saturday, September 20th, 2025 from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. at Agawam Park. The setup will take place on Friday, September 19th, 2025 from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. to include the access of the Southampton Cultural Center, Veterans Center, repositioning of the village, show, mobile, and tent. Do I have a motion?
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the Stony Brook Southampton Hospital to hold its annual 2025 Hamptons Marathon, Half Stone event on Saturday, September 27, 2025, from 7:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at Agawam Park. Donations are generously provided to Stony Brook, Southampton Hospital, Southampton Youth Services, Southampton Educational Foundation, Southampton Village Ambulance, and Project MOST. I make a motion.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. We will now go to comments from board members, and we will start with Robin Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to share some information with Southampton Arts Center, what's going to be coming up for the holidays. And there will be a live performance. It'll be Truman Capote's The Thanksgiving Visitor. That should be lovely. And we want to just take a moment to acknowledge our veterans. And we're so pleased that our village takes the time to acknowledge them and respect them and honor them. And Southampton Arts Center did something quite unique this year, where they had Mr. John Milillo, and I hope I said his name correctly, an artist, and his work was on display at Southampton Arts Center, one of our cherished veterans here. So we want to thank him for sharing his artwork and thank Southampton Arts Center for doing this. We know that the roof is coming together lovely, and it was just for a short term. So we're looking forward to the festivities, and we want to welcome Southampton Town Ambulance, welcome them, and we're so pleased that they're joining. And I want to thank our chief and also Mr. LaMonica that will be assisting in making this a smooth transition and welcoming to them all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. We'll go to Trustee Simeoni.
Last weekend I attended the fundraiser for the Southampton Cultural Center, which was successful, and I encourage everybody to look at the program. The Southampton Cultural Center has many programs that enjoyable to attend and serve the community very well. Other than that, I made my comments earlier.
Thank you, Trustee Simeoni. Trustee Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. On last Monday was Veterans Day, and Veterans Day and the 4th of July are two of my favorite days of the calendar to be a trustee. I appreciate and value them so much. On the 4th of July, walking down this main street celebrating America. And on Veterans Day, we honor and respect those who serve the country for their service. I remember in November of 2021, when it was my first Veterans Day, I was told to show up at the Presbyterian Church. And I was like, well, I'm not a veteran. I shouldn't be walking that parade. And somebody said, no, you represent the village and you should, you should be part of the parade. So I did. And I just can't tell you how good it makes you feel to be a resident of Southampton and a citizen of the United States to walk down that street. It is said that when you join the armed forces, you write a blank check to the United States of America, basically payable up to and including your life. And I realized as I walk that my service is insignificant in comparison to that. So it's really rewarding to go to the memorial in Agawam Park and participate in that ceremony honoring those who served and those who made the ultimate sacrifice. It was a beautiful day in Lake Agawam. The mayor made a great speech. Father Mike gave a great benediction. Our guest speaker, Tim Hendrickson, who is an Iraqi war veteran, made an impassioned plea for improved recognition of the cost to those who served of their service in terms of PTSD and mental health. I was even amazed by the Southampton choir. I've sat through 3 or 4 of these ceremonies, and each year they get better. This year they were like multi-part harmonies. They were really good. The band was great. A lady named Emily Pakasasi sang the Star Spangled Banner and America's Beautiful. I mean, it just cheers me up just thinking about it. It was so great. So anyway, that was a tremendous day, and I just want to recognize all of those who serve. And speaking of service, on Wednesday, I got a call from Chief Escobar saying that they'd received a call over at the fire department from the state requesting, due to the terrible forest brush fires and forest fires in upstate New York, they were running out of equipment. They needed more people and help to fight these things. And would the village send a fire truck with people up there to participate in that? And I got a hold of the mayor and Trustee Zananti, and we agreed that this was something the village really should do. And so Chief Escobar, Captain Pat Collins, First Lieutenant Jason Paremba, Second Lieutenant Shane Finocchiario, Dean McNamara, John Reister, James Moore, and Ever Urza. They woke up at 3 a.m., went to the fire station, got our fire engine, and drove up to
the area where the fires are burning and spent the day fighting the fires. Came back, left there about 7 o'clock at night and didn't get back till very late that night. So, and these just jump in the fire truck and go up there. They don't get paid. Sorry, it's just amazing. So I get too emotional in these things. Sorry about that. Any case, I wanted to recognize I wanted to recognize those guys for doing that and appreciate all the service they do for us. So thanks to all those who serve. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you, Trustee Stevenson, very much. Right, Trustee Zananti.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with Trustee Stevenson's description. Village Veterans Day ceremony was very, very touching. And I also was honored to march in that parade and listen to our guest speaker, Tim Hendrickson, who gave an incredibly heartfelt talk. I was also honored to present 4 Southampton Village proclamations to 4 veterans at the Mariners Patriot Club Annual Appreciation Dinner on October 30th at Southampton High School. The dinner to honor the veterans showed the wonderful commitment of members of the community, volunteers, high school students, local businesses, and restaurants. And lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about traffic. The Southampton Village Traffic Committee met on November 1st. As I had mentioned last time, it is comprised of village residents from local residential streets off of Hill Street and village officials. We accomplished 3 things. 1, we reviewed what I guess is the long-term County Road 39 mitigation solutions, which include alternatives to County Road 39 that would include using the LIPA right-of-way among other routes. That was presented to us by the Suffolk County engineers. Secondly, we reviewed a proposal to ease traffic on residential streets around the village by trying to move traffic more efficiently on County Road 39 by the town highway superintendent, and we wholeheartedly thought he should try that pilot excuse me, in the spring. And lastly, we reviewed and are in the process of signing a letter to the county prepared by Chief Hertow regarding implementing dedicated left turn signals on County Route 39 to ease the afternoon commute, that thereby encouraging traffic to move more efficiently and alleviating traffic on our residential streets. And with that, I will say good night.
Thank you, Trustee Zananti. So I would like to start by thanking everybody in the township of Southampton for voting for Proposition 3 on the ballot just on Election Day on November 5th. It will allow the village to move forward with placement of the algae harvesters adjacent to Lake Agawam behind the Jobs Lane parking lot. These algae harvesters will be able to clean 300 million gallons a day when fully operational, and it will again help the waters of Lake Agawam, so that then when we do have to open the pipe, should we have a flooding in Lake Agawam and we have to open the pipe into the ocean, it will be clean water and not water that's contaminated with blue-green algae. So again, I just want to thank everyone for voting for that who did, and it will also allow for the purchase of additional parkland for the village from the CPF money. As you know, the village contributes a lot of money to the Community Preservation Fund. We don't get nearly back the money that we put in, so it is good to see that the town is going to purchase some land in the village for preservation of open space in the village. I did also want to mention that last Saturday I attended a ceremony at the library, the Rogers Memorial Library, that is celebrating 25 years in their current location on Cooper's Farm Road. And they are going to be doing an enhancement and a revitalization program over this winter. They're hoping to have everything in place by late next spring, but there will be a small cafe. They are increasing the teen area, and they're redoing the children's area, as well as enhancing their technology section of the library greatly. So these will be fantastic enhancements. I was joined by Chuck Scarborough of NBC, and we got to cut the ribbon together, which was a lot of fun, and it was well attended. I appreciate Trustee Simeone being there, as well as others, and it really was it was great. Finally, this morning I went to Shippey's for a groundbreaking ceremony that they had. Trustee Zananti and Trustee Stevenson joined me there to again help with the shovels, digging in the ground, because Shippey's is going to be expanding to the south, and they're going to be adding a permanent structure as well as a structure that will have a retractable roof. I think it will be the only retractable roof in the village, so that people can sit outside and have the roof open in good weather and then close in inclement weather, so that again it will be an enhancement for Shippey's, and I think that'll be a great addition to Windmill Lane in the village. And today there was also a lot going on in the village, and I just want to mention a little bit about what goes on a regular day here in the village of Southampton with our dedicated staff, especially the Department of Public Works. We are well on our way to planting 200 trees this year, thanks to John Flick and the Parks Department. We got up to 187 last year. I told the guys that we had to beat that this year. I wanted 200. They said we will get to 200, but I want to let everyone know that last year when we got to 187, that was more than double the previous year. So this administration is on a huge tree planting program. Some of you will notice that there are some new cherry trees that were planted on the corner of Wickapog, right there by Wyandanch and Toilsome and Old Town Crossing comes in there. So that will be nice to add to those cherry trees there, as well as trees throughout the village. And I did also want to mention then that was what the Parks Department was doing today. I then went up to the ambulance barn where they are increasing the size of the parking lot there, a request that came from members of our volunteer ambulance corps. So they were doing some of the masonry work to increase the parking lot there. It's going to be under the solar arrays that were put up by Johnson Controls there, so that again, that whole campus with the ambulance barn and the police station will be net zero. All of the energy for those will be supplied by the solar arrays that are now installed, and they act as a carport actually over the parking lots. And finally, I went to visit some of the highway guys over at a sinkhole that occurred on Leland Lane right outside of the intermediate school. This was discovered a short time ago due to a leaking pipe underground had undermined the road, and there was literally a sinkhole forming right outside of the intermediate school. So we had several of our members of the DPW down there working on that. This was all going on at the same time in Southampton Village today. So I really think the taxpayers are getting their money's worth when we're paying for all these things to be done simultaneously. It was really great to be able to go around and visit all the guys, and they were all guys, that were working on these projects. And it's really great to see the village taking shape in so many different ways. And finally, I wanted to end on a sad note, and that is the passing of Reverend Peter Larson of St. John's Church, who also served at the Dune Church during the summer for years and years. I extend my condolences to his wife and children on the death of Peter. He was really a fixture here in the village of Southampton. I always enjoyed going to hear him preach, and he just had a great way about him, and he will be sorely missed by the community. But with that, I think we will close this meeting of the Village Board of Trustees. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.